It's January, it's freezing, and I'm taking you with me today, and we're gonna talk about 5 things that I no longer do now that I'm in my 40s. Guys, there is stuff I just do not do anymore. Now that I'm in my 40s, I just don't do it. Welcome to my channel. My name is Jody. I am so glad you're here. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been with me since last year and through my gift guides, thank you so much. I'm out and about. It's freezing here in the South. I'm gonna grab a hot coffee and we're gonna get to it. I'm back. The first thing that I gave up when I got into my 40s was being sedentary. Now hear me out. In my 30s, I started working in schools, which is a desk job. My whole adult life, I was chasing babies, having babies, exercising, and taking care of my kids. That keeps you on your feet all day. And I started at the high school, the first high school I worked at. Pretty quickly put on a couple pounds, and I didn't understand. How am I gaining weight? How are my pants tight? What's going on? I run 4 miles a day. Yes, 4 miles a day. I got a Fitbit. I still have one, by the way. These keep me accountable. I got a Fitbit. I saw that with running 4 miles a day, I was barely getting 10,000 steps in. That was such an eye-opener for me, and throughout my 30s and into my 40s, and especially now in my 40s, I will not be sedentary. I still work a desk job. However, I get up and walk around the building. I walk after work. I walk to the farthest bathroom. I'll jog in place at my desk if my step count is low. I will do anything to get above 10,000 steps and get my exercise in. And that really has kept me feeling good about myself, feeling confident. I also need it because I know that I'm sedentary if I'm not working to get those steps in. And that is the first thing I gave up, was being sedentary. I don't always get a full half hour of exercise in, but every day I exercise for at least 24 minutes. That's the low end. Usually it's more 30 minutes, and I've added in weights, I've added in variety. I don't just run anymore because I've noticed when you get older, you don't want to be using these same muscles and same joints repeatedly all the time. They wear out and they start to ache and hurt. And by cross training and not being sedentary, I have seen a huge change. The next thing that I quickly said goodbye to was trends. I just can't follow trends, guys. I can't. I catch a trend at the tail end. Like the skinny jeans were in for a really long time before I would dare try a pair of skinny jeans. I just couldn't. And then I found skinny jeans and they were comfortable like leggings, and then they weren't really as in anymore, and it transitioned to something else. I wear what I like to wear. I like to be comfortable, which is why I love Halara. I did a Halara haul. I'd never had Halara clothes. Check that video out if you haven't. When I say that is an honest review, it is an honest review. My kids were poking fun at me. I dress like a grandpa because I am a slave to comfort. I love comfort. I just don't feel like myself if I'm not comfortable. If I'm dressed up with heeled shoes on, it just doesn't feel like me. Another reason why I loved Halara, the clothes felt like pajamas. I just don't have the time to be squeezed into pants. I just don't have the time anymore. Halara was just enough outside my comfort zone, just like a tush push outside of my comfort zone. It had me realizing I could up my style without sacrificing comfort, and that's what I'm about now, guys. I'm not about hurting my feet with shoes and squeezing into pants. You get to be in your 40s and I want to look put together, but I'm just not gonna do it. I'm not gonna make myself uncomfortable just to look a certain way. When I lived in Pennsylvania, we had lived in Pennsylvania for a while. It was the second high school I worked at. I was in my 30s. My kids were all in school. Now my kids are at the tail end of school and college and working. This is when we were in the thick of it, is what I like to say. You're doing practices, you're running around. This one has football, this one has chorus, we have an art show. that was the stage of life I was in. No drivers, I was the taxi cab, my husband was working, I was working but at the school, so it was manageable. I got roped into doing a lot of stuff because I was at the school. I got roped into being vice president of the booster club and helping out with this team and that team. I just couldn't say no. I wanted to be the person that helped with everything and kept things afloat. And guys, man, does that just, it does. And it's not that I don't want to help. However, I've learned to say no. And that is just being more authentically myself. I just can't pretend to want to do everything all the time anymore. And for a while, I loved being involved in everything. However, there came a time where that wasn't me anymore. I needed my downtime. And if my kids weren't involved in it, I wasn't doing it. I wasn't putting myself out for everyone else's kids when my kids weren't going. That just became my thing. If my kids weren't doing it and my kids weren't involved, I just had to finally start saying no. That I'm going to call being authentically myself. If I wasn't being authentically myself, I wasn't going to do it anymore. I've been out a while. We're going to head home and then we're going to finish up our little chat. I'm home. We're ready to talk. When I was married, I was 21 and I remember things would bother me, whether it was stuff from my in-laws or my husband or anything. And I would just bury it. And bury it and bury it and bury it. And every once in a while I could feel like, it felt like something was gonna like erupt. And I learned in my 40s to use my voice. I learned about speaking the truth, speaking my truth. My husband calls it my truth serum. I don't know, maybe sometimes he wishes the truth serum would kind of settle a little bit. However, I learned to just speak. And it is so freeing to speak up and speak what you're thinking and not be thinking something at home and being so mad about it. I've learned I can be kind and be clear. I don't have to be unkind. I don't have to bottle it up. I just need to be clear and set my boundaries. And that is a very fine line that I learned in my 40s. It has been imperative to my well-being as a whole. I'm just not afraid. I'm not afraid to speak up. I am so just in my own world. If it doesn't make me happy, I'm not entertaining it. You have to try to offend me. I think it's God's way of taming my tongue. I'll tell you how it is. However, I usually don't realize I'm being offended or I should be offended until way after something happens. And I'll sit around and be thinking to myself, wait a minute, I think that person wasn't being nice. I just don't even have the time of day. When I was a teenager, I loved the sun. Now, I'm going to stop there. I still love the sun. However, I appreciate good skincare now more than I ever did. I would do the minimal amount for myself when my kids were young, which might be true of all moms. Self-care was not as big a thing 15, 20 years ago as it is now. I know how important it is for me to feel good about myself. And if that means spending a little bit of money on some products or getting my hair done, it does need done. So this is a funny video to make right now. I'm okay admitting my hair needs done. But I always make an effort to do these things. And that is something that has made me feel better about myself, more confident. It's so much easier to feel good about yourself when you're taking care of yourself. And that is the one thing I have really learned more than anything. Wrapping up literally everything I just said, wrapping it up and putting a bow on it is take care of yourself. That was my lesson. Girl, take care of yourself. You're in your 40s. You cannot pour from an empty cup. If you want to speak up, speak up. If you don't want to apologize for that, don't apologize for that. Be clear, but be kind. What you allow to continue will continue. So don't let it continue. Such important lessons. Oh, and get your butt up and walk. Speaking of which, I am going to walk. It is sunny and beautiful out today. 27 degrees, but nothing a jacket can't fix. And I'm going to get my steps in. Thank you so much for joining me and listening to me just ramble on about my 40s and all these things that I now do for myself that I didn't before. And I really hope that if you're not doing these things, you take a little bit of advice from me. I'm not a huge person to give advice per se. However, this is important. And if you even learn or take anything away from this video, I'm so glad you did. I hope you enjoyed it. Like and subscribe for more content, and I will see you soon.